Welcome back, everyone. Hope we're all doing really well. I'm Pommy and Oz. Thank you very much for joining me. Smash that like button. Smash that subscribe button. Let's hit 3K. A staggering 48% of you aren't subscribed to this channel. So do me a favour and get on board, please. That would be great. And obviously we're doing the review. The fans corner, my favourite part. And we're going to do it a little bit differently this week. Few advices from you all, because really the feedback is absolutely impeccable, and as you can see here, it is insane. Look at all these comments you guys and girls do, and I'm absolutely touched. So what I've done is, because usually we have a lot of similar ones, I'm giving you all the shout out there. Look, you're all there, all of you. Thank you very much for that. We're going to take it and break it down into our thoughts as a team, and we're going to go through it. So, obviously, one of the biggest ones, obviously, was the goal kicking. So, when you kick like that, Carlton were really, really poor, as we know. We were shocking in front of goal, and bad kicking is bad footy, isn't it? That's what they say. And there was real chances to win it, and I want to take you through. We had 10 shots at goal for 1 goal 9 in a passage of play. So let that sink in. 10-18 in the end. Carlton hit the front, and once they hit the front, particularly in the fourth, it kind of really died. There was that TDK moment in the third which could have really put the game away, and Carlton really struggled. And a lot of you asked in the comments, what would I say for that? And I go back to my golf kicking here. I want you to watch Charlie Curnow, particularly in the fourth, in his shots, not getting through the ball, right? Now, in golf, you might know a few people you play with. They de-accelerate through the hitting area. So they get to here, and usually at the point where the ball hits where your hips are, that's the acceleration zone from hip to hip. And you find when you get soccer players and you coach them, they really get it, because they're hitting through the ball and they're actually accelerating towards the target. Charlie Curnow kind of stabs through it. And you saw that get worse as the pressure got on when them goals needed to go in. Now, I think counterproductive would be telling him off. Counterproductive would be screaming and shouting. I look at him, if I was his coach, you've got to get him through that. And if you start making that something that he's conscious of too much, particularly under pressure, that's going to get progressively worse. So if you bollock him, you shout him, you berate him, you take him into the goal field and say 1,000 goals or you fuck off, that's going to make it worse. And they all suffered from that. What they need to learn to do really is hit a target. I always used to talk about try and hit something through the target with your club through the target line. So imagine you're going to let go and hit your mate who stood 10 foot in front of you. Something like that, hitting through the target. I would be really saying here to the boys, right, that is an issue, you know that, but what I want you to do now is really commit to it. And if you miss it, you miss it. Do you know what I mean? If you miss it, you miss it. And I think that's part of Harry's problem, that we have a thing called run home to mum status, I call it, in development. It's something we all do when we're under pressure. And it's usually a bad habit. It's a bad tick. So a big one is, I notice when I'm at work, people on the phones, they and ah a lot. Or say, you know what I mean? You know what I mean all the time. It's a real nervy thing. But it creates uncertainty if you're speaking to someone on the phone, because it's like, who's this prick? You've got to really hone that in and hone them positive environments. So for me, it hasn't happened before. And you've got to think that Carlton have had these inside 50s. They've generated this amount of inside 50s on many occasions. It's what Carlton's real fortitude is. But 59% from 49 inside 50s isn't great. Carlton have had them numbers before in the terms of inside 50s and gone at like 70 and they win that game. And that is something that, if it becomes a habit, you worry about it. But for me, I would be saying, look, back to the drawing board. The pressure, you've got to work back. And I want to use another golf analogy for you. Those of you who are golfers, if your short game is good around the greens and around on the putting green itself, putting, particularly your 10, 12 footers, if you hold them in, you can scratch a good game around. Do you know what I mean? If everything's going in, you're going at 32 putts. let's say you're doing that, you should be looking at 4 under par as standard if you're playing in regulation. If that's not 4 under par, you've got to start looking at your game elsewhere. And we're going to cover that now. That I think a lot of them goals weren't needed if Carlton got things correctly. But I am going to say, yes, kicking was a huge issue this week and it needs to be addressed. But for me, is it something that you severely address when you know that these blokes haven't done that before? You probably put the warning out and you bat them in again, because that, I think, was just a bad day collectively at the office, because the field kicking was absolutely abysmal at times. So what I want you to look at, and we're going to go through here, is a few of Carlton's moments this week that were really poor around stoppage and clearance, which was a big question. And the legend that is Carl's asked this: why do we lose? I think this was a big part of what we're going to cover now, and we've done something a bit different for you. So what I want you to look at first is this one here. So what we've got here is one of the, really, what our bad clearances do. So you can see as the ball comes down here, Carlton got their hands to the ball in centre clearances as we pause it there, a staggering 53% of the time. And you've got to remember that we lost that clearance count by 5. And you found that this ball out the back came, and this was what happened a lot. Notice how St Kilda really attack that attacking side of the ground a lot of the times. And what I mean by overuse is just watch this one here, right? This was right at the start. Now, if we pause it there, right, Carlton are attacking the attacking side of the ball, right? Look, and they win it here. Do you know what I mean? Look, now this here needs Walsh, who's there. Usually he's attacking that pack, but you can see he's running backwards. And this is where it happens. Look, handball, right? Do you know what I mean? Here you want to just take the stoppage, but look, handball again, right? Fumble, handball, pressure. Look at the manic pressure there. 3 Saints that were on the ball are now behind the ball. They are there and Carlton are outnumbered. And I want you to notice TDK here. What he did really well against Freo is he acted as that blocker. He allowed Cripps, he allowed Kennedy to get to the fall of the ball and creating the space. But at the moment, it is literally one-on-one around the ground. And you can see Sard there comes from nowhere to get it, and bang. Quick ball in with these forwards is easy. Is easy for them. There's another one here as well. Look, Carlton get their hands to it first here, and now it's out the back. But look, the pressure at this point was so much, they can only boom it forward. And it's a high ball, easy to defend, very easy to transition. And what you saw for Saints is this, right? When Saints got it, and all these taps are almost the same way. Their defensive side, look, they got it out the back and they run backwards, create the space, easy kick. And that is what Carlton do very well. And what they did is Carlton didn't defend their attacking side. And what I'm going to show you here is what Carlton genuinely do when they play well. So, genuinely when they play well and they've won the ball, right, they look to get here and handball it out here. Now, from this position here, right, you usually see a Sard or a Doc run up. And this here is the move that's very important. When the ball comes out here, Carlton run round behind the ball carrier, and there's either a handball to Walsh, and Walsh will do exactly what St Kilda did in that example, and ping the pass to a runner here, or they'll handball between them, they'll handball to the runner, and off they go. And we found that this week, what St Kilda did really well was because they defended their attacking side of the ground, their defensive side of the ground, and they flooded that area. They always had numbers. They had done their homework on Carlton, and Carlton started to overuse it. And where before we were peeling wings, like you see that Walsh run, that runs behind, or someone runs onto the ball carrier and they look to take the game on and get through that line of defence. Freo did a very similar system to Carlton. Carlton struggled to be brave and do it. And this was a huge issue for Carlton this week. Huge issue around stoppages. And that can be fixed, like we say. TDK's got to get in there and act as a blocker. It's something he does very well. Something Bam Bam does. This week, they didn't block. You saw there, Zach Jones getting his body in the way, taking a man out of the contest. Carlton weren't willing to do that and really did react to their pressure. And we'll see here, handling pressure is a big one. Watch this here. From a stoppage, right? Just get it away. Get it away. But here, look, Carlton here have got the numbers. That kick needed to go there. But the willingness to go backwards, putting Lockie O'Brien under tremendous trouble. And before you know it, they've got one outs everywhere. It's an easy goal. But if you go back to this passage of play here, just getting the ball forward. And this here, O'Brien does the right thing here. Now, Nunes here, he's looking for the runner down here. And if you go really slowly, it's not there. Look, this is Carlton aren't spreading away from the contest. They're all condensed. Now, when we see an example of how Carlton do it very well in a minute, but we look at how St Kilda spread when they turn the ball over. Look, the ball comes out the back, look. They go central, right, look. But then, look, players have still ran. So he has come from the middle of the ground to there in that example. And now they slow it down. They're setting themselves up. And you see Carlton have already gone into the defensive transition. Once you take a mark and you stop it, they do it. And look at this. They attack the corridor hard. But look at players running there. You see, look, that guy there has come. He's ran 10, 15 metres. Look there. Another 20-metre run to the wing. Do you know what I mean? Carlton were unable to do this. And you'll see an absolute great image here of just how easy it is. Look, again, back inside. The option wasn't there. Carlton too willing to get the ball inside 50. And look at that there. They get to that nice angle. They create an angle of attack. And this is really interesting because we'll see another transition. You're going to see it brilliantly here. Carlton's pressure here, if we pause it here, they have flooded one side. They've left the open side up. And look at how St Kilda attack this. Runner, Brad Hill, from the back pocket, straight up to the corridor. And look at them now, overlapping Carlton on the rebound. This kick here, he's overlapped two players. Carlton now, look at how deep they are. One-on-ones everywhere, and Carlton can only kick it out. But look, their midfield has beaten our midfield to be at the fall of the ball. Excellent forward pressure. Carlton can't get it. We go back inside. Again, this handball chain. Stupid handball again. Carlton's overuse of that handball gets them into trouble a lot. And it's the wrong users. You don't want Plowman handballing it. You want Plowman just getting his right peg through it and absolutely smashing the granny out of it. And there is another issue for Carlton. Their ability to handle pressure. And when you go through the numbers, it's very interesting. Carlton actually had 6 more pressure acts than St Kilda. They were outnumbered with the ball, obviously, but that was a huge issue for Carlton. 6 more pressure acts. They put the pressure on, but they couldn't handle the pressure. And the handball game is really important. And I'm going to show you how the handball game does work. I'm going to show you how the handball game, how it looks when it goes well. And this is it. Carlton's handball game was good, but it wasn't. It's good to do, but it's poor when you don't have the facilities. And this is what I mean by this. If you watch this passage of play here, Carlton get the good forward pressure. Look at the runners. Look, run. Handball. Runners ahead of the ball. Players working hard. Now look at the midfield joining here in case of a stoppage. Do you know what I mean? So if you look behind here when he gets the goal, look, the midfielders are streaming in already. Huge importance for Carlton that they run together. And this is where you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Team defence, team offence. A lot of talk about Jack Sinclair. I agree with Voss. You don't tag players. But that space was there as we saw how easily Hill moved. The midfield weren't at half forward, where in the St Kilda example, they were. That third line of defence has to be there at all times. And it is an aberration for Carlton when it doesn't go wrong. And when it goes wrong for Carlton, it's really, really bad. There's a thing that we look at called work rate. Sometimes you've got to look at work rate of teams. And the KPI for work rate is really simple. Really, you're looking at uncontested possessions and uncontested marks. Now, they were so far ahead on uncontested marks, it wasn't funny. It was nearly 40, it was 40 more uncontested marks to Carlton. And that is a huge sign of work rate deficiency. And I want you to just imagine the situation of the game here. Carlton are well in the game here. Look at this at the stoppage from the end game, right? So as the ball comes down, left to right of the screen is attack. Look at how many players are Carlton's side defended it. And look at how much they flooded it. They have one in Carlton's attacking end. So you know, hit-out-wise, they were winning by a decent margin. 10's a decent enough margin to win a game. In this stage of the game, you've got to flood that side. You've got to risk, bring your defence up, create that backstop line and say, you know what? If you win it here, you're kicking to us, our big boys. But around the ball, we're getting there. And just look from here how many men of St Kilda are behind the ball. And look, they boom it forward to one-on-ones. Carlton didn't flood that. They brought men back and it was too easy. And in the last quarter, plus 11 uncontested marks for them. It was very poor. Very poor. Carlton's chase, willingness to close down space was really abject, especially when you look at last week against Fremantle, where it was so strong. So, you all asked, what would I say to these boys? And check potential changes. For me, Whittaker wasn't good enough. And whether that's an injury issue, I'm not too sure. I think it was. I really do think it was. But if I was picking the side this week, I would be looking at bringing in Whittaker indefinitely, and I'd probably bring Whittaker in for Plowman, believe it or not. And I think Kemp deserves another shot. Although people are criticising him, when the midfield applies so little pressure, when you've got Hewitt 10, Kennedy 5, you shouldn't be drawing even stoppage clearances and losing clearances. Carlton's were bigger bodies than Saints. And if Whittaker's not fit, I think don't risk him for next week. You know what I mean? And if he does, he's got to play on the ball. Carlton's on the ball this week was bizarre, and you saw them examples where we were good was when Fisher played on the ball, and he's direct. That's what Whittaker does. They're very direct. Kennedy, Hewitt, and Cripps are his preferred formation. Very stagnant without Doherty, Sard, Walsh doing them intercepting runs. Fisher, amazing this week as well, 14.3 kilometres, the fourth most on the ground. You've got to look at that for Carlton. That maybe Fisher and Fisher and Whittaker can play together in the wing areas. So this week I drop Plowman, bring Whittaker in. I'd also drop my boy Nunes. Nunes are very good at slotting in the back, but I would drop Nunes and I would keep Whittaker in, but I would drop Nunes for Stocker, play him back pocket where he has been playing, and they would be my changes, and I would bring Owens in if I could, and with that there, I would probably look at maybe, do we sacrifice Whittaker in that case? If Durden is fit, do I sacrifice Whittaker and give him a week to get right? But a lot have been talk about Durden. Remember, Durden had 20 pressure acts this week. That is phenomenal. He did his job. The forwards really did try and do their job this week, the Smalls. My issue was half forward, and maybe there Josh Honey might be sacrificed if Whittaker is fit for that Owens. So my changes probably would be Honey out, Plowman out, and bring in Whittaker in, Owens, and go that way, and take Nunes out and bring Stocker in and get a bit more well-rounded. But definitely the rotations around the ball have to be it. It was poor, let's be honest. Carlton do suffer at times from having a real resounding performance and then it going wrong the next week. Big game next week. No pushover, Eagles. They're going to bring the intensity. And what we've seen from the Eagles in the last 2 weeks is you've got to put them away. This is a game, though, that if Carlton are a top 8 side, they have to beat them. So, thank you very much for your questions. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Like I say, 50% of you just under aren't subscribed. Check out the quackingcauldron.com.au. You got all the cool stuff that we've got, all the crystals, all the spells, tarots. Thank you very much for sponsoring us. See you next week. I've got a special one for you tomorrow as well with the Uncle Paolo. Check that out. See you later. Palm out.